Well, I really do believe that you were the glue that held your family together because you had some rough years at the beginning of your marriage. You were pretty young when you got married too.
Oh, I was a teenager. Yes, I was. But you know, when I look back on those days, I think about when I grew up, I was mostly with my grandmother because my parents worked all the time. They had a store. And so we hung out. And she taught me so many things. And we talked about, one of the things we talked about was marriage. And that's when I told her, you know, I was going to marry the pioneer man and all that. And she told me, she said, well, just remember, Kay, it's going to be one man and one wife for one life. See, you don't have a choice there. It's going to be, you make a vow to God and you have a commitment and you stay with it. And then the next thing she said just threw me off. She said, and you'll have to fight for your marriage. And I told her, I said, not so, because I've read the books. I live happily ever after, right?
Oh, yeah.
And she said, no, Kay, that's only in the book.
Yeah.
So it wasn't happily ever after. In fact, a lot of the women here probably don't know the full story of what all you went through. So maybe you could fill them in a little bit about that. And then what helped you stay committed? You know, maybe it was your grandma's wise words or whatever it was, but at the time you weren't a Christ follower. So.
No, because, you know, and I was, you'll find this out in the book, I was pregnant and with Alan, and we started out with Young, but, you know, I had the most positive attitude. I just knew, you know, it's going to work, it's going to be beautiful. This is the man of my dreams. This is the man that I'm spend my life with. And didn't start off exactly right, but that's okay. Because my whole life was about commitment. It was about being the best wife, being the best mother I could ever be. So it was like a fairy tale come true. Well, Phil, I really sometimes look back and think, well, he didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he didn't do this. But so I guess the only mess up had to do with me, but I say it takes two to tango, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
So we started out. What I never thought about was in college. Phil was, you know, went in on a football scholarship. So he was a lot of times with the football team, and they actually even had to live in the dorm some through their spring training and some other stuff. So what I found out was that Phil started being influenced a lot with the players and, you know, different ones. Now, believe me, it's within him to make those bad choices. But it didn't help that he was surrounded by people that said, man, you're too young to be married. You're too young to be a father. You know, you missed all sowing the wild oats and all that stuff. And so, you know, here we go. And he starts doing things he never did before. He starts drinking and being a party guy and all this new thing that came in. And where I realize now that I was operating then on only my grandmother's faith. And let me tell you something, that's why you need to share your faith. Because that held me till I found my own faith. But you know what? I went out one time with them drinking, and I realized that, well, I brought my baby. I thought everybody brought their kids. I mean, I thought it was just a party, you know? And they said, you brought your baby? And I was like, well, yeah, I don't have money yeah. So I quickly left because it was, you know, it wasn't a place to have a baby. And it wasn't a place for me. And I realize now that was my grandmother's face was kind of telling me, you don't need to be here. You know, it was like a little voice going off. I don't know if it was God or my nanny, but somebody told me.